Give us some of the big things we need to know about how these modern conveniences, what they are. Is there an alternative? Like, does that mean life has to become inconvenient? Or is what we need to know about these modern conveniences?
Yeah, and that's it. It's like, and with these conveniences that just are kind of adopted every day, all day, and we're all born into it.
Yeah.
I didn't choose it, but it's like all of a sudden a phone is in my face and now everyone has them. And like, let's just talk about how amazing the conveniences are.
Yeah.
Right? To walk around with a phone. I remember like superfood hunting in the middle. I was lost and like, I'm like, holy shit, where do I go? There's a trail and it's supposed to be a road. And I remember one of the first times I used the phone's GPS and it found me in the middle of the freaking Andes in South America. And so that's amazing. Right? It's an amazing accomplishment what we've done, and to be able to provide really way more food than we actually even need because we're wasting 30 to 50% of the food that we're creating. And of course, we can talk about what kind of food that is, which is also the rub of food itself is now remanufactured and then sold back to us. So these conveniences are crazy. Like, it's like, let's talk about tap water.
Yeah.
For God's sakes, I can go to my sink and turn on-demand water.
Amazing.
When you have 2 billion people in the world that absolutely don't even know essentially what clean water even looks like, right? With a jerry can and going to a bacteria and virus-infected water source and playing Russian roulette with drinking water. So let's go, holy shit, we've done a lot of things. And a car. The leading cause of children dying is in a car. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But yet, we carry on.
Yeah.
And we use these things. And so the amazing aspect of this is I don't want to be inconvenienced because I'm so used to. But we are not asking questions because the man or woman making the choices who are wielding the wand of these are safe in our world simply doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And the tricky thing with science these days is it's also cherry picked. So there'll be a whole bunch of good stuff that is shown, and let's invoke the Toxic Substance Control Act. Wait a minute. Why would you need to invoke something that you should have been already governing, right? So it's like, what are you talking about? So then the publicized versions of that are out there, but yet for every good thing they see or show or talk about, there's 100 others that they're not regulating. And so we come into this world where we're like, okay, studies showing we're already being infected with toxic chemicals in the umbilical cord of children. That when you and I grew up, that border, right? That placental border of the woman to the child, that was uncrossable. Right?
Yeah. Oh,
that
so
was like, no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It wasn't. Do what you want. Hell, my mom, she didn't drink that much. My dad was the alcoholic, but my mom was smoking.
Oh yeah. So was my grandma. My grandma smoked when she had my mom, and it's crazy.
Yes. Yeah, so they didn't know. And then you also come to find out that one thing that scared me, because I didn't know going into the book, and I had about 15 to 20 researchers, and one of the things that scared me, which I didn't know, I knew the gyloma with proximity and duration of EMFs and cell phones close to the body and close to the head. That was problematic. Hell, a buddy of mine, a researcher 20 years ago, was telling me about that. And what really was scary to me was the blood-brain barrier was showing to be opened with proximity and duration of these polarized EMF exposures. And I was like, what?
Yeah, that's
the brain?
That's been around for a while, by the way. Like you said, it's just nobody wants to know that because the phone is quite convenient. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, so it's this carcinogenic stick we're running around with. But again, there are ways to live in this world, right? There are ways, like I just told you, like I'm in the woods. And so just to get a hardwired from AT&T, took me 3 months when I first moved here in 2016. And it's been spotty ever since. And this was a moral dilemma. My moral dilemma was I don't like at all the fact that Starlink and Elon Musk and all these other people are putting tens of thousands, nearly 40 to 50,000 satellites and microsatellites in our ionosphere and then blasting us with 5G. I'm massively against all of that. I think we should bury the wires. I think we should go back. So in order for me to live and to be on my purpose, I couldn't function living here and then being a business owner. And so I had to buy a Starlink, and then I hardwired it inside my house so that I don't have extra EMF. So it was a moral dilemma. My point to that is I made a choice, but I also made a choice that is minimizing personal exposure, right? Hardwiring things back in. You and I are both plugged in as we're listening here. We're Bluetooth and all that stuff. So there's a lot of ways, and largely if people look at my life, you don't see a difference, but I'm not having a phone in my pocket on, right? It's on airplane mode. So the conveniences are there. We can still exercise them, but my God, we have a lot of choices that if you don't make them, especially when you're talking about those micro exposures that you know so well, the endocrine disruptors, the lotions, the phthalates, the parabens, the PFAS, which we're getting inoculated every day, all day, and reapplying all of these things. That's where, hey, we're not saying live out under your oak tree and don't use deodorant.
And drop out of society.